alleged attacks on civilians, but not all of those claims are adding up. When America's Pearson Sharp explains the call to war could have less to do with fighting terrorism and more to do with oil.
The war for Syria, an international effort to stop President Assad from terrorizing his own people, right? Well, there might be more to it than that. Aside from the fact that there's no evidence that Assad did use chemical weapons on civilians, there's also the issue of oil and gas. Specifically, Syria has it, and as always, other countries want it. Dividing up another country's resources is not only challenging, but creates a potential minefield politically. In steps Genie Energy. Based in New Jersey, Genie Energy is an Israeli-American energy company which managed to pick up an exclusive shale oil exploration license on more than 153 square miles of prime real estate in the Judean hills in Israel. The problem is that land is Syrian territory, which, under international law, is currently being occupied illegally by Israel. But the chiefs at Genie Energy are pushing ahead with operations all the same. The current president is retired Israeli General Efi Eitam, a man who has frequently gone on record saying he thought it was a good idea for Israel to cleanse the occupied territories of all Arabs. He was even interviewed by The New Yorker, where he said that eventually Israel will have to, quote, kill them all. But these kinds of comments don't get mentioned in the press, since another leading member of the board is none other than Rupert Murdoch, a media mogul and executive chairman at 21st Century Fox. Other big names on the board include Dick Cheney, the former U.S. vice president, as well as James Woolsey, the ex-director of the CIA and a founder of the U.S. Energy Security Council. Adding another major player to the list is Lord Jacob Rothschild, a British investment banker and a member of the wealthy and powerful Rothschild family, who, by the way, admitted that his family was involved in the creation of Israel back in 1917. Following the 1967 war, Israel captured and annexed the Golan Heights from Syria. It's an area with immense strategic value, as well as having water resources, making it a valuable prize to hold on to. Now Israel has taken it upon itself to give Genie permission to drill 10 wells over 3 years, although any drilling on occupied land is illegal. But Israeli business experts predict drilling there could turn Israel into a, quote, energy powerhouse, producing 300 billion barrels of oil at bottom dollar. And it seems Israel isn't the only one keen to make that a reality. Dr. Larry Summers, the former Secretary of the Treasury under President Clinton, and Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu are also key new members of the Genie Oil Strategic Advisory Board. And Landrieu was even involved in the U.S.-Israel Energy Cooperation Bill while she chaired the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources. And these suspicious connections haven't gone unnoticed by the political elite, with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. even noting that the U.S. involvement in Syria has far more to do with the region's petroleum reserves than with fighting terrorism. It's worth noting that Murdoch, through 21st Century Fox, is one of the major financial backers of both the Atlantic Council and Bellingcat. Bellingcat regularly publishes articles vilifying President Assad for gassing his citizens, while the Atlantic Council is an anti-Assad think tank based in Washington, D.C. The council calls for the removal of President Assad and replacing him with a more U.S.-friendly regime. In addition to Murdoch, the council is also funded by the Bank of America, the European Union, NATO, as well as the U.S. Air Force, Army, Chamber of Commerce, Department of State, Marine Corps, and the Navy, to name just a few. Defense suppliers Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin also finance the anti-Syrian Atlantic Council, and following the latest U.S. missile strikes on Syria, their stock soared by $10 billion. The role of Genie Energy in the broader Syrian conflict isn't clear. However, it does raise a number of questions, especially when there's a complete lack of evidence of any chemical attacks carried out by the Syrian government. There's also Washington and Israel's refusal to withdraw from occupied territory, some of which represents the richest oil fields in Syria. In fact, the U.S. currently occupies an astonishing 1/3 of the entire country of Syria, including areas that produce 90% of Syria's oil. While there are no concrete answers, the presence of these companies points to more complicated issues in play than a simple sectarian conflict. And combined with Secretary of Defense James Mattis's latest comments claiming the U.S. will remain in Syria indefinitely, they suggest the war in Syria could be very far from over. Pearson Sharp, One American News.
And straight ahead on One American